G'day guys, welcome back to the channel, of course, episode 115 of the Boundary Riders podcast. Of course, we have a lot to talk about today. Going to be taking a look at the Cats and, of course, them being under investigation over the past few months regarding some money issues that has seemingly started to get towards the end of that now. A mid-season draft preview. We're going to be also taking a look at the Nepo babies of the AFL, the Gold Coast Suns. Also, we'll have our preview to round 12, the review for AFL Fantasy, and much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs.
He looks at his options, and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do just this!
But this guy has Flog written all over him.
From a tap down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was. So guys, my brother has joined us today. So I've had a couple of days off of work, lucky me, but you've had today off. But anyway, hasn't been that great for us this season. It may be the first time in quite a long time, maybe even since we've been watching footy, that neither of our teams were making finals, it looks like. I mean, I think 2019, 2020 is when Sydney missed their finals in previous times. I think Port Adelaide were playing in finals those years. May have been 2019
Maybe
when Port Adelaide missed it.
2019 we didn't, but yeah.
It looks like it's all over for us.
Yeah. Booking our holidays in September.
Yeah, and Port Adelaide can't even just say they were tanking for a good draft pick because you just told me I completely forgot about this, but they traded away their first round pick.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's looking up right about now for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, well,
we're coming into a good game this week, so we can't lose.
yeah. Who are the Port Adelaide playing this week?
Good
The
old-
bye.
The bye.
Yeah.
Good old bye.
Getting back to the good old TARP days when the bye was their best week of the season. Oh, well, Sydney aren't doing that much better either. I get to it a little bit in the preview, but oh my God, I go hard into Joel Hamling. You've watched
Yeah,
him
I've watched
two of the last 3 weeks. Joel Hamling, that move. How do you look at it as an outsider?
Some moves just aren't they're not thinking outside the box, they're just dumb.
They're dumb.
They're just dumb.
I'm just a bit sick of Team Cox moving the magnets around, trying to make almost like a Hail Mary kind of move to see if something's going to work. And it just, I think since maybe the Aaron Francis one, not a lot of them have been good. Like Sam Wick's been a great move. I don't know if he'll play this week because he did come out with hamstring tightness, so I'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But that one worked, and Aaron Francis worked for a moment. I'll be interested to see if he can, because he hasn't kicked more than I think 2 goals in a game since that great game he had off the bench as a sub against Port Adelaide. So he should be back this week, but other than that, it seems like not many moves have really worked this year for the Swans. So Cal Mills is going to miss a week off the suspension. I'd probably just give him after the bye, to be honest. Let him come after the bye. The season's basically done. Get him on to a good end of season run. And then we get Goulden back. Papley probably comes back by then, and maybe we hit the end of the season running, and then move into 2025 with a bit of run, bit of momentum going into it, similar to how Collingwood did it. Maybe we can go a bit of a run there, and a bit of news coming through. We won't talk about too much about this. I'll go into a bit more in a trade video in a couple of weeks because that will get some mad views. But the Swans, well, Tom Morris, so take it with a bit of grain of salt, but he has said that the Swans are going to be going hard in this trade period. I think they're going to be going hard for a key forward. I think that's pretty safe to say.
You have to. I think that Logan McDonald just hasn't got on the field this year, so
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he plays.
Really, to play with him, really.
Yeah, I don't think he plays for the rest of the year. Hayden McLean's been heavily down so far this year. And Joel Amartey, I still think Joel Amartey's the option going forward as the key forward. But he's obviously suspended. He's been a bit injury prone so far this year. So I think that the Swans do need someone up there. If that is Jamara, I don't know. The one good thing about a Jamara move would be the fact that he's not going to cost much now. I don't think the Bulldogs really want him, and that they're not going to make him pay too much for Swans. So I don't know. But I mean, he threw up names like Charlie Curnow, Ben King, a couple others. If I was the Swans, I'd be trying to not doing a Buddy Franklin move, to be honest. I'd be trying to go for someone who's young and then try and develop off that young key forward. Because I think Sydney have got a very good a good list of young players. But yeah, I think that's probably the way we go rather than going for someone and just paying huge amounts of money on one player.
Yeah.
I think that you try and look around that mark of getting maybe 2 good players, really good players, young, just before the Tassie team comes in.
Yeah.
That'd be my move. Don't get me wrong, I'd love a player. He even mentioned Harley Reid. I'm like, I don't think that's happening. Surely not.
It depends on if if he wants to be in a footy state or not.
He would be away from a lot of media scrutiny though if he did move to Sydney. So I mean, Harley Reid, who's got number 9 right now? Because I mean, he's wearing that for the West Coast Eagles. That seems like his number. Sydney, don't even know who's wearing number 9 for the Swans right now. I'm blanking. Isn't it? Is it Will Hayward? Oh my God, how am I not knowing this? I should know this, but anyway, I think it is Will Hayward.
It is.
Yeah, it is Will Hayward. I mean, I think Will Hayward can move from number 9 to accommodate for Harley Reid, in my opinion. No, but that's all right. Let's make a quick bet. If Sydney are going to go for one player, who do you think it will be? Because it has to be a big player, not Jamara. This has to be big.
So you don't think it's Jamara?
That's not big enough for me. I feel like if they're going to be going heavily in the trade period, it has to be someone who's like still in contract and like not looking to go at this stage. I'm going to be like Craig Hutchison, like how he called Buddy Franklin before everyone else did. Now, I don't have insider knowledge like he did, but I'm going to go with Ben King.
I was going to say that as well.
All right, call it now. Ben King, big headline. We'll be moving to the Sydney Swans at the end of 2025.
Yeah.
We'll call that here. All right, called that. May 27th of 2025. All right, at 5:14 p.m. All right, we're calling it now. Ben King will be in a Sydney Swans jumper in 2026. That's going to be a big call. I can't wait for him to run around in red and white. It's going to be epic. All right, let's cover a couple of injury topics over the week. So, some bad news for the Tigers is Sam Lawler will be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. I mean, rest up, King, my goat, Sam Lawler, the Python himself. He'll be fine. I mean, he should just take some skin off that penis and put it in the hamstring. He'll be fine in 3 weeks. He'll be fine. Probably the worst thing he's happened so far this year. I mean, he only had 2 touches in that game. It seemed like he's a bit tired. I mean,
well,
probably
the 2 disposals, hit 2 goals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's quiet for the guy for the goat. He'll be fine. And Tom Dowell as well. He'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks with a patella injury. So unfortunate there for the Tigers. Interesting to see if Josh Smiley gets a go soon too. He's been biding his time in the VFL. The Tigers have been pretty off trying to put him in too early. Hasn't really lit it up in the VFL yet. So they've been pretty cautious on his approach at this stage, which I don't tend to really mind. And I think they've been doing so far pretty well with the Tigers. It is very funny. I mentioned it in the review. The Tigers have been better than they were last year, even though they lost so many other good players. Yeah. Other injury news here. This is really sad for the West Coast Eagles. Jake Waterman looks like his shoulder injury is on the serious side, and it's understood that he's going to be missing the majority of 2025. So it looks like now they have to just play with Oscar Allen at this point. They just have to go with him. Hey, Oscar, we know you're not going to be here next year, but we're going to need you to kick 20-plus goals for the rest of the year to keep us from not finishing with 1 win for the season.
Losing him was not what they need when their other key forward doesn't even want to be there.
So also we've got Braden Maynard. This is actually pretty good news regarding his plantar fascia. It seems that he will only miss 1 to 2 weeks, so it does seem that he has ruptured the ace with his plantar fascia. Now, from my understanding, that if you clean break it, that is the best case scenario. I've heard this on Dan Does Footy's podcast as well, that he did it in his past, and what they actually do sounds pretty horrific. Is if you don't fully break it, they actually get you to go in there and break it fully to make it recover quicker. From my understanding, that sounds fucking brutal. Apparently, I can't remember what he said. I think he said that you got to actually put your feet on some sort of spikes or something stupid to try and actually fully break it, which sounds fucking horrible. Now, I'm probably butchering how they do it. I'm not exactly an expert in this sort of scenario because, I mean, other than my top goal scoring in the Port Districts Footy Club and, under 14s, I didn't really have a lot of accolades in footy as a young kid, which I actually got. I think I've told this story before, but you stole like half my goals because we're identical twins.
I didn't tell him to.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you should have seen the kid running around in the bike the bright green boots in the forward pocket, kicking snags from out of nowhere.
And when I was just sitting on the bench or at back pocket, it's really hard to believe that that's happening.
Yeah, I know. Fucking oath. Exactly. Fucking look at the magnets on the board. You see prime Dylan Holmes in the forward pocket. You know he's kicking all the goals. And half of the goals in my footy tally for the under-14s Port District side was taken by my brother. So I lost I think I finished equal first that year, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, you kicked the most goals and I kicked one.
I don't think you even kicked one, did you?
No, I think I did kick one.
You did maybe kick one. I remember there was one point in the forward pocket where I was like, give it to me, and you're like, no, I've got it, and you kicked it on the other side of the goal square.
No, I kicked it towards you. It just went out the full that
day. Yeah, right. I said, give it to me, and you're like, no, I've got it. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, this is going to go across the face and on the full, and that's exactly where it ended up. Anyway, enough of our, golden years.
Yeah, none of our AFL careers that just didn't just plan out.
Yeah, unfortunately, politics got involved, and they were just against us, really. They're like, look, we can't have you in the AFL, you're too good. Anyway, on the better side for Collingwood, moving into selection talk, Scott Pendlebury, Bobby Hill, Steele Sidebottom, Darcy Moore and Lockie Schultz all should be ready to go for Friday night's game at the MCG. Interesting, because they played half of VFL side last week against North Melbourne, and now they're going up against the Hawks of the MCG. Should be welcoming back their best side, really.
Yeah, so if I'm Hawthorn, I'm shitting myself right about now.
Yeah, I'm going to put on the agenda right now. I think Hawthorn are a bit of a chance. I think they're going to come out with a response, and it's going to be a very close game of footy. I still think Collingwood get up, but...
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I just don't see how they do it.
Yeah, I think Collingwood are going to be hard to beat at the moment. On debutant news at this moment, Leo Lombard, after an injury in the pre-season, he is set to go for his first game in Gold Coast colours. Great story, Leo Lombard, part of the academy for the Gold Coast, been Gold Coast all his life, will get his debut. We'll get to the Suns' Nepo baby claims in a little bit later, but that is good to see that Leo should be getting he will be getting his debut. Probably comes on as the sub. Hasn't exactly lit it up in the VFL at this stage, but I mean, he seems like he's going to be a star in the making for the Suns, which is good.
There for 15 years, so...
Yeah, I think they're definitely building something very scary up there at the Gold Coast. Let's move to Geelong. So, I think it was the start of the year, there was talks that the AFL were auditing the Cats, and I think they're also doing Port Adelaide as well. Apparently, they do this every year. They audit two clubs on their financials, go through a deep dive of them, and see if anyone's been doing something a little bit shady behind the scenes. Now, apparently, that has finally completed at the Cats. According to Caroline Wilson, who's been leading this story, here's what she's had to say.
Craig, the audit is virtually finished. Results have been slowed down by the fact that Geelong COO Marcus King has been away, I think studying actually at Harvard. He's back, and my belief is that Geelong are expecting a fine, or there will be a fine from the AFL over the coming weeks. Geelong have been adamant from the word go that there is no smoking gun here, that nothing untoward was going on at the Geelong Football Club in terms of any attempt to hide third-party payments. The AFL accepts this, but there have been discrepancies. There have been lodgements that should have been noted that weren't, and they will lead to 10 potentially, several five-figure fines. Whether they go beyond five figures, I can't tell you. I do know that one major lodgement issue was a car to a senior AFLW player that wasn't lodged, and I think there might be a couple of other things as well. I can't tell you exactly how much, as I said, the fine is going to be. No one's talking about it, but both sides, Geelong are expecting a fine, and the AFL is expecting that to happen.
What's the difference between hiding something and forgetting to tell someone about it?
I think that's happened before. I mean, I remember the Brisbane Lions a few years ago were fined for failure to lodge, and it's happened across the board. I think Western Bulldogs many years ago, but we're not saying that there was any cheating. There was any attempt to cheat the salary cap. What it will lead to, and the AFL have told Geelong and other clubs this, is that there's been a loosening of management issues at many clubs, and a warning will be given to all clubs.
There'll be a crackdown on third party.
There's going to be a crackdown on third-party payments, and this has been led by what's happened to...
So, I mean, it looks like they're going to be getting a fine at this stage. To the degree of it, it's not really known. Several five-figure sums of fines are set to be handed down to Geelong over this investigation. I mean, a lot of people look to the fact that they've been able to recruit so many big players over the journey. And it seems like they've got almost a all-star list in a lot of capacity, that they've always been able to stay up the top with the players that they've had. This doesn't seem like it's a lot, like it's going to be a hard crackdown. It's not like, I think Carlton way back in the day, like cheated the system and then they got fined, and a lot of people have said that that's a big reason why they're still down the bottom, because they've never been able to rebuild. I don't know if that's the case, but it's going to be interesting to see how hard they crack down on Geelong here. Now, it always feels like, as an outside supporter, that we're like, oh, they're cheating. They're obviously getting third-party payments. We saw Chris Scott in more recent times get a new job, apparently, at a financial broker or something that he's been doing. And I mean, I know he's obviously been very passionate about finance for a lot of his time. I don't know. But it seems like there has been some shady stuff going on at Geelong for quite a while. And the fact that they have been recruiting so many high-profile players for a long time, Dangerfield, Jezza Cameron, Bailey Smith in more recent times, they've been linked to players a lot this year. My question to you would be, depending on how much these fines are, do you think Geelong will take a bit of a cautious approach going into the upcoming off-season?
Depending on what what it is, the fine is, I don't think they will be, no.
You think they'll still go full helter-skelter in the next trade period or so?
Yeah, well, because if you're saying that the two teams get audited every year, it'll be, another 9 years till they get audited?
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, there was so much backlash way back in the day when Buddy Franklin joined the Sydney Swans. There was a huge... Well, I mean, basically that was the whole reason why the COLA payments got taken away from Sydney or New South Wales teams and that sort of stuff. So the Cats have been linked to already a couple of players this year going into the next trade period. Harley Reid, Matt Rao. There's probably a couple. Jamara was one as well. Sean Darcy's always been thrown around as a potential target. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Cats go forward. It always feels, I mean, you don't want to say they've been cheating. Like, you don't want to say that because that's a huge statement to make. I don't think they necessarily have been, because I think it would be a bigger story if they were full on like cheating, like just Kirk Tippett style, giving him a extra bit of a contract when he wasn't really paid that much. I don't know if you remember that way back before he joined Sydney. The Crows gave him, I think it was almost a six figures, a couple extra $100,000 onto his contract, so he'd stay at the Crows before he moved. He wanted, I think, a part of the deal was he was going to stay for a couple more years at the Crows before the Gold Coast Suns came into the competition, but they couldn't afford his salary that he wanted, so they sneakily gave him a little couple of like top-up payments on his contract, and then when he was going to move to the Swans, the AFL realised that his contract was very sheepish, very shady. The Crows knew what they were doing, and that's when they got draft picks were taken away from them. So that's how it worked out. I've been doing a couple of videos, been looking at for like future stuff for the channel, but yeah, that was one big one for Kirk Tippett. It doesn't look like that's what they're doing, but it does seem a bit shady that players like Bailey Smith had an opportunity to go to maybe a Hawthorn or that, but chose the Cats, who their major sponsor or clothing sponsor is Cotton On, who the big ambassador for Cotton On is Bailey Smith. You can understand why people get a little bit... They question it. They're like, it's a bit weird that you've been able to get this player, and this player without losing anyone that are probably worth over $1.2 million on a salary, but they're only playing for maybe $800K. And I think the salary cap for teams now is around $17 million. So when you're thinking about players that they've got at the club, Dangerfield, Smith, Jezza Cameron, there'd be a couple more as well. I guess you'd think about it and you're like, they're very top heavy, but they've also got very good role players. And you also don't want to leave Geelong because it's, you're in the Victorian footy space, but you're also out of like the inner sanctum of like Melbourne. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just rambling here, but I mean, you're just looking at me with that deadpan look in your eyes. But yeah, it is a little bit interesting, this Geelong story. I think it's going to, eventually the fines will be dealt out. Several 5-figure fines are going to be handed out to them. So, I mean, what? Do you think maybe it gets up to 100,000? I don't know. That seems like that would be a lot. If they were seriously like butchering the system, if they were really like dodging the system here, I think there would be a lot more talk around draft picks being taken away, and players potentially the club getting huge fines and salary cap breaches. Maybe they'd be getting a certain amount of money taken off their salary cap. Like use of salary cap or something like that. I don't know, but I'm not exactly a huge person on the knowledge side of like salary cap stuff, but it feels like there would be a lot of issues that would be going forward, like on the drafts and that the Cats would have to be seriously considering. It seems like there's not too much to be outplayed here. It seems like they've just, I don't know how you feel about forgotten to lodge some payments. I feel like if I forgot to do some lodgements I feel like when you go into tax time, Geelong have a guy in the tax office that should know what he's doing. I feel like I would remember that if that was my job at the football club. Oh, sorry, I forgot to lodge a car from the AFLW player. It's like, bro, that should be your job to know to lodge that in. But, anyway, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think the Cats will get a massive sanction, maybe a couple of fines, but I don't think it's going to hamper them too much. Let's move into the mid-season draft. So there is nearly 340 prospects who have nominated for the mid-season rookie draft. This is happening today when this comes out, so later today. I think it's 6:30 Australian Eastern Time. You can watch it on the AFL official app. Clubs will be looking to, in the next, I think it's yesterday, they finalised their squads to say who's going to be on long-term injury list, so you can fill up spots. Essendon, I think you said, have 4 spots that they can fill up, and potentially 1 or 2 of them could be playing on Thursday night.
Well, I think with the news today with some other players being injured, it could be 5 or 6, but they've requested from the AFL that if we can get players from that mid-season draft to play, if by the end of in Thursday night's game against Brisbane.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. Now, it looks all but certain that Tom McCarthy, a Richmond VFL player, is going to be the number 1 pick, going to the West Coast Eagles. Seems like he's had a very good year in the VFL. I think Outtro even said recently that he should be playing on an AFL list anyway. That Richmond probably would have picked him up if they could. They have pick 3 in the mid-season draft, but he looks like he's going to be going to the West Coast Eagles. A couple of other AFL ex-players include Adam Tomlinson, Oscar Adams, and Liam McMahon, all looking hopeful to get on an AFL list, along with Brendan Parfitt, Jack Bytel, Oscar Falkhead, Hugo Hull-Khan, Tom Hurd, and Patrick Parnell, all players that have previously played in the AFL system, are looking to get on an AFL list. There's been some talk from the West Coast Eagles that potentially they would look at Brendan Parfitt. I don't know if that will be the case. It looks like they're going to be going with Tom McCarthy at the moment. And I don't think if Brendan Parfitt is picked, I don't think he'll fall all the way down to a second pick for the West Coast Eagles, if they even have one. They probably do now with Jake Waterman going out. Yeah. But Brendan Parfitt, I was very surprised that he wasn't picked up in the off-season, to be fair, when Geelong delisted him.
I wasn't. He just... I just didn't think he suited Geelong, and the way the game's been played now, you can't have too many of the Brendan Parfitts in your team.
Yeah, I just think the West Coast... He went back to play for Perth, the Waffle side, and he's been starring there. So it seems like maybe West Coast would go and get him. It looks like at this stage, the order of the picks now, they have changed it a little bit because of obviously Essendon and the Gold Coast playing 1 less game so far this year. So they have gone on win percentage rather than wins and losses at the moment. So the current order of picks is West Coast at 1, North Melbourne, Richmond, Port Adelaide, St Kilda, Sydney, Carlton, Melbourne, Fremantle, GWS, Western Bulldogs. So 12th pick will be Essendon at the moment. Hawthorn, Geelong, Adelaide, Brisbane, Gold Coast will be 17th pick, and then Collingwood will have 18th at the moment. So that's how they've kind of rostered it at the moment. Looking at it right now, there's also other players like Nathan Kruger, who have been massive so far this year in the VFL for, I think he plays for Collingwood's VFL side. Port Adelaide, a lot of have had interest in him. Port Adelaide also have interest in, who is it? It is Jacob Newton, I believe. No, I don't know who I think it's a Harrison Ram. So I think he's a tall defender for the Glenelg. Potentially Port Adelaide would look at, because Port Adelaide desperately need a key defender. But Nathan Kruger seems to be the one that a lot of clubs are looking at. I'd be surprised if we don't see. I think in the last few years we've only seen one or two like former AFL players come back onto a list in a this sort of capacity. We saw Quinton Narkle last year get picked up by, or 2 years ago get picked up by Port Adelaide, and then eventually he went on to play for Fremantle. Has played a game or two there. I think AFL clubs are a lot more hesitant to pick up a non-used AFL player. So I think there will be a few more. Don't know. I think Brendan Parfitt likely gets a go. A lot of key position players. I think Nathan Kruger will probably get another go. There will be a couple more as well. Maybe Adam Tomlinson. I was surprised he wasn't picked up last year as a late, maybe an SSP player, to be honest. He's currently playing for North Melbourne's VFL side. I think there'll be a couple of key position players to get snatched up in this mid-season draft period.
Yeah, especially like with Essendon and all their injuries to their tools. Port Adelaide, and West Coast now with the no forward line.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. Of course, Braden Crosley did play some games for the played a match simulation for the Western Bulldogs. Eventually, they decided not to go that way. Essendon desperately need a ruckman as a backup for Todd Goldstein at the moment. Could Essendon potentially pick him up? Because he has been like dominant as a VFL ruckman for years.
I think like somewhere in the last, 3 weeks, he had a game of like 30 plus disposals with 5 goals.
Yeah.
Like he is primed to just go straight into an AFL team and just give him a go. And Essendon, as we said, need one. Why not just take the punt for the 6 months?
Yeah. Give him a 6-month contract, see how he does. And if he doesn't do that well, I mean, at the very least, he's playing VFL for your team for 6 months.
Yeah.
Is that really the worst thing in the world?
Yeah.
And Southport continue to dominate in the VFL, like really. I'm surprised players like Boyd Woodcock, who's a former Port Adelaide player, he dominates VFL every single week for the Sharks. So a bit surprised that he doesn't get a real go at it, but we'll have to wait and see. If I'm a Swans fan looking at it, I would like to see a Nathan Kruger on my list going forward, a Brendan Parfitt. I would personally want the Swans to look for at the moment, a key forward just to get us through the next 6 months, hopefully. Someone who could kick some goals, potentially. There has been, I think one of the players around the mark, Caleb Lewis? He's got some interest from the Gold Coast Suns. He's 198 centimetre forward. He plays in Melbourne at the moment. I mean, I wouldn't mind that as a Swans fan right now. We do need some sort of key forward to kick to. Because Francis isn't doing the job, Hamling isn't doing the job. I would like that, but I don't know if we're going to get it. Sydney tends to go for a player that's for the long-term future.
Yeah.
When they look at the mid-season draft. I mean, with 340 applicants, it looks like there will be definitely an opportunity for players to get another go. I love the idea of the mid-season draft. I think it's a great initiative for the AFL. Going forward, I'll be interested to see what clubs go forward. You were talking to me about Nathan Kruger. You would like him on the Port Adelaide list.
Yeah, I think he deserves another go. In Port Adelaide, Nathan Kruger can play multiple roles, and that's what really Port Adelaide need at the moment, since we're losing key players left, right, and centre. Yeah,
I think that Nathan Kruger, that was recently mentioned from the VFL coach, I believe he plays for Collingwood's VFL side. He said that he is in the best shape of his career. Yeah. He's always been pretty injury prone, which has been his issue. So started at Geelong, moved to Collingwood. He was in their best side for a little bit. Yeah. Just then got pushed out a little bit later on, but wouldn't be surprised if he gets another go. I think he's a big talking point. But at this stage, it does look like Tom McCarthy all but certain to be going at the number 1 pick and going to the West Coast Eagles at this stage. But with that being said, guys, let's get to our segment, of course, Overreact / Fair Call. So this is basically we look at some statements made over the week and give our opinions on it, if it was an overreaction from the football media or it was a fair call from them. Or it doesn't have to be a AFL media personality. It can be a head coach. So we get to the infamous statement made by Ross Lyon over the weekend. He said, the Suns are the AFL's Nepo babies. Now, do you think this is an overreaction from Ross, or do you think this is a fair call? Tough call.
To be honest, I think it's a fair call.
Yeah, okay.
I think it is. I think they've had so many concessions, so many things, so many draft picks, so much help in the last 5 to 6 years. I think you do. Like, if you say at the start in their history, no, I wouldn't. But the last 5 or 6 years, yes, I would say they are.
Now, looking at it, I found this little pick here that says top 20 picks playing for the Gold Coast Suns today. So you got Matt Rowell, Noah Anderson, Ben King, Bailey Humphrey, Jed Walter, Ethan Reid, Sam Flanders, Mac Andrew, David Swallow way back, Ben Ainsworth, Will Powell, and who's that? Braden Fiorini. They've had 4+ pre-draft academy selections, 3+15 top 15 picks in the draft, and 3 top 20 picks are coming up in the 3 top 20 academy picks in the upcoming draft. So I look at this in 2 different ways. Well, 3 different ways. One, I would say if this was anyone but Ross Lyon from the St Kilda Football Club, I think this statement would hold a lot more weight to it. St Kilda have butchered their draft picks in years gone by. So that's why I think a lot of people go, oh, shut up, Ross. Look at what St Kilda have done. They picked Jack Billings, Paul Marcus Bontempelli, you moron. Yeah. They picked Paddy McCartan before Christian Petrarca, you moron. Stop blaming that. So if this was made by Craig McRae from Collingwood, or, I don't know, Geelong, like when John Longmire, maybe not John Longmire at the Sydney Swans, Chris Scott at Geelong, I think this would hold a lot more weight to it. Yeah. But because it was Ross Lyon at St Kilda, who have, famously made some terrible decisions at draft tables. That's why this is like, oh, shut up, Ross. Go fuck yourself. The second side I look at it is how bad were the Gold Coast for so many years? Yeah. It's about time they actually are a good team. But also, I understand that they have been given so many concessions over the last few years. So, of course, eventually the wheel has to turn that they are going to be a real powerhouse. Yeah. So, yeah. And I do think as well that they have needed it, because if this is if you look at it as well, North Melbourne have been given a lot of concessions as well, and they haven't really been able to turn it around. Yeah. So, I think that it was needed, that they needed a lot of concessions. Has it been too much? Maybe. But they also have to look at it as well, so many that they got a lot of concessions. They got concessions when they started, and a lot of players just up and left. Yeah. So when now they've got an academy to pick from, they've picked up players like Walter, Reid, and a couple of others as well that are going to be coming on. And now apparently they've got potentially 3 top 20 picks coming in the next from the academy in the next draft. So of course they are building a real big squad here that could keep them in higher stead for years to come. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So hopefully for their sake, they can stay as a powerhouse team for a while. But I think when a lot of people look at it from the outside, especially supporter bases from Victorian clubs, especially like a St Kilda, who have struggled for so many years, they would be like, hang on, why haven't we been given these sort of concessions? It's a bit unfair. But I do think as well that the Victorian clubs, there are a lot of players picked out of Victoria from every single year. Yeah. So, of course, they get that extra, you can come home and live with your family and see them every single day, rather than, you get to see them maybe a couple of times a year through the footy season. Yeah. So, I see it 2 different ways. I think it's a fair call from Ross that they are a bit of a nepo baby, they've been giving all these concessions, you get this, you get this, you get this. Eventually the wheel is going to turn. They're going to be a better club. They're going to be a potential powerhouse now. But I also think that anyone, if it was not Ross, there would be not a lot of. If it was anyone else but Ross, there would be a lot less backlash for it. Yeah. So if it was anyone else, and St Kilda continue to complain about this, you still need to check your own backyard. Similar to how Damien Hardwick said, they only had 13,000 at that game. Yeah, their fans need to start going.
It didn't look great, but it wasn't a great time slot. I can see a difference in that one. But
yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. It was a shit time slot, 2 teams that don't have huge fan bases. So yeah, I kind of get that too. But St Kilda also need to watch their backyard because they need to get better at it. Yeah. And I also have to mention the Sam Collins response. This is made today. When asked a question, he was asked today about the thoughts of Ross Lyon's comments over the weekend, and Sam Collins, in big dick fashion, just flopped his cock straight on the table in front of the journo and said, the last opinion of Ross Lyon that he took was when he delisted me. So I don't really care about his opinion anymore. Well done, Sam Collins.
Bang.
By the way, I thought that was this was way back. I think it was 2016 when he got delisted from Fremantle when Ross Lyon was the coach. I thought that was a bit of a shock back in the day as well. Yeah. I always had good thoughts about Sam Collins. Now he went back to Werribee, played there for a year, was so good that he was one of the concession picks from the Gold Coast way back, and now he's their vice captain. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a weird decision at the time, but looking at it now, it's all worked out in the end. Fremantle, they're around down the bottom now, sort of. I think he'd be a great pick for them with Alex Pearce at the moment. But looking at it, I mean, he's probably one of the better players for the Gold Coast, one of the real leaders there now. One of the, he's been there through the tough times too. He hasn't been there just coming in now when they're building a powerhouse lineup. Yeah. He was there through those years when they were freaking dog shit. So, anyway, I thought that was a really good response, though, from Sam Collins. Good on him. Big dick energy. Now, the last one I wanted to bring up here, a statement made over the week, is from Carlton. So, the Carlton Premiership window has been slammed shut.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call.
Yeah, it's a fair call. This was made from Kane Corns. I think it was today, in fact. He's basically said that the Premiership window of Carlton is gone at this point. Yeah, that they've wasted a real opportunity to snag a flag. If anything, they haven't really had a real shot at it, really. I mean, they got to a prelim in 2023, but now they're in a pretty tough spot.
Well, you got to think Kerno's coming to the end of his career. He's only got a couple of years left. Mackay's, you don't know about him.
I think he's a bit older than Charlie Curnow, wouldn't he be? He'd be around the same age.
Around the same. Paddy Cripps is still... If he doesn't do it for him, they got nowhere to go.
Yeah. Tom de Koning, he looks set to leave now.
Yeah, he looks like he's out the door. Wiedering, he played his worst game of his career on the weekend, but he just... If it's not him... They've got no defenders to help him out. Yeah. Doherty, he played his best game all season last week.
Playing in the VFL a lot for the last month or so.
I would sadly think he may retire at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. They don't have a small forward. However they say it, their best small forward probably Will White, which is funny because he's only played a handful of games.
I mean, Corey Durden's had some good games this season, but yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
He's just...
I mean, you're alluding to Jesse Motlop at the moment, aren't you?
Oh, I think everyone I listen to about every Carlton, when they talk about Carlton, is that why the hell is he in the team? And I still don't understand why he is either. And I'm not a fucking Carlton supporter.
Yeah, I do think there was a bit of a cope that I saw of a tweet that was circulating around regarding Jesse Motlop and Eddie Betts regarding the first 50 games from Eddie Betts and Jesse Motlop. Eddie Betts only kicked 51 goals, while Jesse Motlop's kicked 48. So they're saying
is that really a stat? Because I wouldn't have thought he kicked 48.
Yeah, I mean, true. That's very true. But I do think that you can't just... I don't know. I wasn't really watching footy that much when Eddie Betts was around, like early days. But the one thing that Eddie Betts always brought... I mean, he kicked over 500 goals, I believe, in the end of the day when he retired. He also brought pressure. He brought a lot of that. Jesse Motlop really hasn't done a lot of that either, though. No. The problem is, as soon as it gets inside that forward line for Carlton, it is straight out the next minute. In like 20 seconds. It is in, out, gone. Those the small forwards, nowadays as well, it's not really all about the goals. It's about the pressure. Yeah. So if it's just going in, out, what's the point? 48 goals are well and good, but you're not putting on the pressure, which is an issue, I think. Now... Do I think this is a fair call? I think it's a little bit of an overreaction because it was only a few weeks ago when people were saying, oh, they're back. Carlton are right back in the hunt for finals. They're all good. They've finally changed.
Yeah, well, they beat Geelong and for the previous 3 weeks when they beat West Coast and North Melbourne. They're back. It's
they're saying they're back. So I think this is a slight overreaction on the fact that Carlton are the talk of the town one week and then they're just, they're shit. Go away.
Yeah, but also... That was the AFL media saying that, but their game style since Voss took over, even before that, has been the same shit. Bomb it long, expect Mackay and Curnow to mark it. If they don't, it pings out because there's no pressure in the forward line.
Yeah, so no, I agree.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, that hasn't changed at all.
Under Voss. So why would we expect it if he is the coach for the next year or so?
Do you think I think he's got another year in his contract. Do you think he survives the going into 2026?
No.
You think he's probably gone?
I think if they don't significantly at least get in the top 10, he's out the door.
Yeah. I think they almost have to make finals, really. I mean, the list that they've got, the top-heavy list, they have to at least make finals this year, which I doubt now. I mean, I think there's probably only 9 teams that potentially make the 8. Maybe Melbourne on the form that they're in at the moment. But the top 9, I think, are pretty well set. Fremantle could potentially jump in there. And I think maybe Melbourne. But other than that, Sydney are gone. Port are gone. Like teams from last year. Yeah. They're gone. Essendon won't make it with their percentage.
And their injuries.
And their injuries as well. So I think the top 9 are probably pretty well set right now. And, I mean, maybe a team could make a bit of a run. That's why I think Melbourne could. Because they've got the midfield and their forward. I mean, their midfield are really doing well to score goals to help them out.
I think it's their defense with Lever back now. And May, that combination's always been good.
Yeah.
So, and McDonald, he was dropped on the weekend. So they do have a bit of depth in that position that they can bring him back in if they need to.
And Cozzy Pickett's in career best form too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like you said, they're a team that could go back to where they were in 2021 and go on a run to all the to get to finals. Yeah,
I think next week I'm actually going to take a look at I can't remember if you saved or we posted the halfway through the season of where you had the ladder for like the season predictions. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a rest of the season predictions going into it and then see if we're going to see any other teams make it, because I haven't really looked at like a ladder predictor, but I think that's what we can do next week. Look at potential teams that are going to be able to make the finals, but we'll do that next week. We'll have a quick look at that, bit of a preview for you guys. So yeah, we'll do that next week, and we'll see what other teams are going to make it. But just on the outside looking in, I can't see any more than 10 teams in the finals race right now. Yeah. I can't really see it. So I think top 8 teams, Fremantle and Melbourne at the moment. That's probably it for me. But guys, let's move on. Let's get to the preview to round 12, of course. Couple of bye teams this week. Port Adelaide, very lucky. They've got the bye. Good signs for them. Maybe they get Jason Horne-Francis back after it.
Same with Carlton. They got the bye this week, though. That's a good chance to regroup.
Yeah, regroup. Big finals push for the Blues and the Power, I'm thinking. Yeah. Looking at it right now, probably there is a bit of a surprise pick for the tips this week. If you haven't seen the tips video already from me, I'm going to be going for a bit of a couple of roughies the next couple of weeks though, because I need to catch back a little bit. I did look at the tipping ladder. Bit of a spoiler for you guys. You are behind me, yet you've used your joker. That's pretty poor. Yeah, pretty poor. You're off the pace. You're 13 off the top.
I was trying to go for some roughies last couple of weeks. I went with St Kilda over Gold Coast last week. It nearly paid off. It nearly did. But
I don't know if
the Gold Coast weren't playing that well.
The Gold Coast didn't play that well, but they also won pretty easily. They never really... I didn't really feel like they were challenged. They were challenged a little bit.
If St Kilda had more players in their team besides Naz, they would actually do something. And they would actually be better.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. All good. All right, guys, so let's get through. Let's get to the preview to round 12. The first round of buys, teams out this week are Carlton, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs. But we still have a lot of games to cover. 7 in total. We'll be covering 4 of the big games, and we'll be starting with the Thursday night contest between Brisbane and Essendon. The Lions coming off a great win last week after being in some pretty poor form, and they are returning to their home ground, of course. Before last week, though, they were in pretty poor form, the Lions. So it does set up for a pretty interesting contest, I think, with Essendon having some good wins in the past, but obviously beating some very lower sides. So looking at it, I think, honestly, we should all be looking at a comfortable win for Brisbane. I think that's fair to say. However, like I said, before their game against Hawthorn, Brisbane really dropped off the pace. They had a pretty poor game against North Melbourne, got a draw out of it, and the game after that, they lost. With an out-of-form team like Brisbane, Essendon would have a bit of a chance. So if they didn't beat Hawthorn last week, I would actually give Essendon a serious opportunity here because they don't have the worst record at the Gabba. However, in saying that, and on that side of things as well, I think the Bombers do have some match winners. Of course, Zach Merritt been there for years, been doing it for years, and Nick Martin is in All-Australian form, best form of his career. So if those two can get firing, maybe Essendon can find a way to go. However, with the loss of Kyle Langford over the week, I think they're going to be really too reliant on Nate Caddy. So maybe if players like Wright, Kako, Gresham, their forward line can fire and maybe their midfielders can bank in a couple of goals, maybe Essendon could cause an upset. However, I can't go past Brisbane here. I think that the Lions finally got back into a bit of form last week, and I have been so heavy on the Brisbane train so far this year. I'm the one who called it last week. I should have tipped them. I said that this wasn't going to be as straightforward as a lot of people were saying, that Hawthorn were just going to go out and win because it was at the MCG. I thought Brisbane had a bit of a sneaky chance, and Hawthorn's record kind of lied a little. So I should have gone with Brisbane. I should have put my neck out and picked the Lions. However, looking at it right now, I'm going to be going Brisbane here at home. They don't lose 2 in a row. That was a very poor game against Melbourne a few weeks ago. They go back and they win this game pretty comfortably, I would say. Now, my brother has also tipped the Lions as well. He said that they got it back into form last week. Their forward line is firing at all cylinders, and it's at the Gabba. The Lions don't lose 2 games in a row there, which, I mean, I think is pretty obvious. But let's move to the next game. This is probably the match of the round. Collingwood up against Hawthorn Friday night, MCG, 90,000 plus you would be expecting. Collingwood coming off a less than convincing win against North Melbourne, while Hawthorn were found out last week against the Brisbane Lions, like we mentioned just previously. Now, I think this sets up for a very interesting contest, as Hawthorn have a really good record against Collingwood at the MCG in more recent times. We obviously remember last year when Hawthorn absolutely flogged Collingwood in the wet, and I mean, that was obviously a long time ago now, thinking about it, when Collingwood are in premiership contention right now, while Hawthorn sitting around that 4 to 8 mark at this stage. Like I said last week, though, Hawthorn's record did kind of lie. They beat a couple of teams up that were down to the lower end of the ladder, and their form against top 8 teams this year hasn't been great at all. Now, I think that they have to do something about James Sicily. He is horribly out of form, and they're going up against one of the best teams in the competition. As the captain, he needs to stand up this week. I think it's pretty obvious to say. He needs to stand up in a big way. Maybe they chuck him forward to give him an opportunity. But other than that, I don't know how James Sicily finds his form. I don't think you chuck your captain back in the VFL for form. I think that's not a good idea. I think that would ruin his confidence. And I don't think that's really good for the team as a whole. It's like, why would we want to be led by this guy who can't even make the best 23? So I think he needs to find his form in another way in the team. Maybe it's even chuck him on a wing. I don't know. I don't know how good his tank is, but right now James Sicily's form is very, very poor. And I think Collingwood will definitely look to exploit that if James Sicily is down in defence. On the other side of it though, Collingwood have lost a few players on injury the last few weeks. We saw Braden Maynard go out very early against North Melbourne with a plantar fascia. Now they've got a couple of other players out from last week, which should return against Hawthorn. You've got Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Bobby Hill as well, and a couple of others with likely return, maybe even Lockie Schultz. The only thing that you can bank your hat on for Hawthorn fans is the fact that they have a very good record against Collingwood at the MCG. And I also think Hawthorn will respond, because I think the last few weeks they were being found out a little bit, and Brisbane really brought that to the fore. Maybe a couple of cracks were being sealed up on Hawthorn's side while they were winning. Maybe a loss will make them investigate those cracks a little bit more. But in saying all of that, I think Collingwood will win. I think it's a safe bet. Collingwood are going to win this one. Despite the record that Hawthorn have against Collingwood, the Pies are just in too good a form right now, and I can't pick against them. I don't think I've picked against them much at all this year, and I think they'll go on and win this one. Now, my brother has said a pretty similar reasoning to me. Coming up against another top 4 team, Hawthorn really don't compete that well against them. They haven't played well against any of the top 8 teams so far this year, and Collingwood have a lot of injuries, so there is a bit of a chance for the Hawks. However, on the recent form, you can't pick them, and that's kind of what I said as well. After that, we get to Saturday afternoon's game. Very intriguing contest between the Gold Coast Suns and Fremantle. This is up at the Gold Coast. The Suns finally going back home, but Fremantle coming off 2 very important wins. GWS, I think it was their first time they ever won at NG Stadium, and then Port Adelaide last week in tough conditions. So Fremantle may be back, you may want to say. I don't know about that. I don't want to go that. If they can beat the Gold Coast up there, I'll put my confidence in the Dockers. But first of all, Alex Pearce is out at this stage. I'm recording this on Monday. He is out off suspension for 3 weeks after a pretty dubious decision. I think that Alex Pearce was going the ball, but unfortunately, he collected Darcy Byrne-Jones and he was concussed. And of course, we go out on outcome less than the actual action itself, which I think is not very great. I think we should go on action. But nonetheless, he's out for 3 weeks at this moment. Him being out is going to be such a massive loss for Fremantle, with the Gold Coast having Ben King, Jed Walter up there. He just sets them up so well. So it's going to be really, really tough for Freo. Now, I think overall, the big problem here for Fremantle as well is it's one of the biggest trips in footy. This is up in the Gold Coast. For one, the Gold Coast barely lose up there. And Fremantle won a game against the Giants a couple of weeks ago, but they haven't been really good away from home either. So with the longest trip going from a really tough wet weather game, a real grind, to going up in the warm conditions of the Gold Coast, it's going to be tough for Freo. Now, I think the Dockers can get them in the midfield if they can win that battle and get it inside 50 enough. Maybe Fremantle can find the likes of Bolton, Dudley, Frederick to maybe spark them. But they do need players like Tracy and Amos to stand up here as well. If Tracy and Amos don't combine for maybe 6 or 7 goals, I can't see them Fremantle winning this game. Because the last few weeks, they haven't been at their best. Josh Tracy is a bit out of form, and Jai Amos is a lot further out of form. So if those two can't fire this week, I can't see Fremantle winning, and I think the Gold Coast have one of the best defences in the competition. So with all that combined, I'm picking the Suns at home. I think their defence can stand up against Fremantle. I think the Gold Coast Suns midfield is very, very strong and seem to have got back into form after a little bit of a slump about a month or so ago. And in their forward line, without Alex Pearce, I think the Gold Coast can kick a winning score. So all that, I think the Gold Coast can win this one pretty comfortably, I would say. Looking at my brother, he set up on the Gold Coast. No Alex Pearce really hurts them. I can't trust the Dockers yet, been up and down all year. And then the final game we're going to take a little bit more of a deep dive into is the Swans up against the Crows. Sydney been one of the most inconsistent teams so far this year. The last 5 games, they've gone loss, win, loss, win, loss. And the Crows have been really good to beat up on teams below them. Have struggled a little bit against teams around their mark in that top 4 position. But right now, the Crows sitting around that top 4 mark. They're sitting in a very good position. They don't have a very good record against the Swans in the SCG, so it's going to be tough for the Swans. However, in saying that, the Swans had one of the worst performances of the year, especially their midfielders. They got absolutely smashed from the Melbourne midfield, so I'm looking for a response from the Swans mids. Now, I'm going to go a bit more into the Swans here. The Sydney can't persist with going with Joel Hamling up forward. He has no forward knowledge whatsoever. Every single time the ball goes near him, he is too busy looking for his defender than going the football. And as a forward, I understand the role he's trying to play, trying to negate the intercept marking of the defender, but he has to go the football. The best way to put a key defender under pressure is to kick goals. And Joel Hamling has no forward nous. He doesn't go for the football. And I don't know why they played him up in the VFL and kicked 30 goals in the VFL last year. You would think he would have some sort of forward nous, but every single time the ball goes near him, he's too busy looking for his defender to go the ball. There was a game, I think it was against Essendon a couple of weeks ago. He had an opportunity to turn onto his right and kick a goal. He handballed it and they missed the goal. Last week against Melbourne, he had an opportunity to turn and kick a goal. He gave it off to Cal Mills. Luckily, he finished, but he just did not look at the goal face. He is not looking at the forward 50 at all. And I can't deal with this anymore. He can't play up forward. If you're going to play him in defence and try even Nick Blakey up forward if you're gonna. But I don't think Sydney need to continue to move these magnets around. Dean Cox needs to stop and just needs to play a consistent team right now. He's playing James Jordan as a tagger half the time. Then he's roaming around the field, has no opponent whatsoever. He's swapped Tom McCartan forward and now he's back, and he was struggling for the first couple of weeks. Now he seems to be in really good form though. Sydney need to stop moving around these magnets. If they're not good in the position that you put them, then they're probably not best for the team. But like Dean Cox said throughout the week, it's not just injuries, it is consistency, and the Swans are off the pace at the moment. Now, before we get to the tips, I just want to take a look at a couple of important matchups. First of all, James Jordan goes to Jordan Dawson. Absolute must if the Swans are going to win this game. Jordan, at the very least, has to go to him at the stoppage, and then if Dawson drifts forward, which he has done this year, Rampy, I think, takes him. But nonetheless, if Jordan Dawson is in the midfield at any stage throughout that game, James Jordan needs to stand on his hip the whole game. Push him into stoppage, whatever you have to do. He can't get onto his left boot because he has been, by far, I think, the best player so far this year, in my opinion. He is the most important player in the competition for any team, in my opinion. Now, James Peatling, I think he probably lines up with Chad Warner at stoppage at this stage. I think Heaney will be a little bit too strong for him, but I think that we'll probably see a Saligo probably line up with Heaney. If he's going to play some sort of negating role, I think he goes to Chad Warner. But I think what the Sydney have been doing this year when that has happened is one of those Heaney or Warner will go forward, which probably gives a little bit of an advantage to the Swans. But in saying that, the Crows have a pretty good defence with Worrell and that line up pretty nicely, and Michael Annie. And finally, McCartan, I think he's probably been the best defender over the last few weeks for the Swans. He was one of their best players last week in a pretty dismal side. So I think he gets the role on Riley Thilthorpe, which is going to be a very tough battle for him, but I think that McCartan can do it. With all that being said, all that bagging of Sydney, I'm going to be going the Swans. I'm going to have a bit of faith in my boys. I'm going to say this on the fact that the Swans have a really good record against the Crows at the SCG, and I think the Swans have to respond. I think they were absolutely smashed in the midfield over the weekend, and I think that Dean Cox calling out his midfield in the presser will get his team up and about. The Swans probably will lose a few players, especially Cal Mills. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get weeks for what he just did. I think they get back Justin McInerney this week, which will help. But I think the Swans can win this game on a response sort of performance. If they can get Warner and Heaney up and about and they find a forward to kick goals, I think they can win this game. It's going to be tough. It's definitely an outside pick, but I'm going to be going Sydney. But my brother's going with a safe bet. He has no faith in the Swans. He has picked the Crows. He has said that the Swans do have a chance if they can tag Jordan Dawson, and they do have some injured players to come back in, but he trusts the Crows forward line way more than the Swans defence, and he thinks the Crows kick a winning score. They'll be too potent up forward, which, I mean, I can't really argue with, can I? But with that being said, let's get to the tips, full tips for round 12. Of course, with the buys coming up, we have only 7 games to take a look at. So The tips for round 12, mine are Brisbane to beat Essendon, Collingwood to beat Hawthorn, Gold Coast to beat Fremantle, GWS to beat Richmond, the Swans to beat the Crows, Melbourne to beat St Kilda, and Geelong to beat the West Coast Eagles. And my brother's full tips for round 12 are the Lions to beat Essendon, Collingwood to beat Hawthorn, Gold Coast to beat Fremantle, GWS to beat Richmond, Adelaide to beat the Swans, Melbourne to beat St Kilda, and the Cats to beat the West Coast Eagles. So getting to our certainty tips now, my brother got first pick this week. Now, because he hasn't picked a team that lost last week, he has gone with the lowest ranked team on the ladder who he's picked to win this week. So he has gone with Melbourne to beat St Kilda as his certainty tip. And I have to go with the Swans to beat the Crows. Of course, the Swans losing to Melbourne last week. So finally, let's take a look at the tipping ladder, of course. And there was a bit of a breakout this week with a couple of players getting 9. First of all, I can see here Paul's Vikings did get 9 tips. The full card, well done to him. Really good performance. Probably, I don't know if he has used his joker yet, but if he did, he would have been right up amongst the ranks. Leviticus is sitting 6 tips in front. Now, he has used his joker, but he's sitting in a very good spot right now. Sitting 6 tips above the boy from SNB who has used his joker as well. Mateus and Ethan Sports are sitting in 3rd and 4th at this stage, and the AFL Hawk God, I think that's the full name, the finishing of the top 5. I'm sitting in 14th spot. I got 7 tips. I was a bit happy with that because I had a bit of a drop-off at the start of the round because I picked the Bulldogs, but I'm pretty happy that I got 7 in the end. I'm sitting around middle table in 14th. My brother is sitting in 18th spot with 1 tip behind me, and he has used his joker. So I'm in front of him, yet to use the joker. Won't be using it over the bye rounds. I'll probably wait until... probably just after it, I'll probably be looking to use my joker at that stage. I am, 13 tips off the page. So if I can get a 7 in a joker round, I could potentially take over. But at this stage, I'm sitting in probably not the greatest spot. I need to get a couple of roughies. Kind of the big reason why I'm picking the Swans this week is I do need to pick a bit of a roughie here. I've been a little bit safe so far this year, not going for a real outsider, which is why I should have gone Brisbane last week. But that's pretty much all we've got for the tips this week, guys. Make sure to let me know down below if you can think there'll be an upset this week, if your team's going to win. If your team has the bye, make sure to let me know. So now, guys, we get to Bros Bets this week. Are we going to call it that from now on in the podcast? I think we should.
I guess we do.
I guess we do. All right, so you've got the betting segment ready to go. Now, do you have one for the podcast? I said to you, Leo Lombard for 3 goals on debut. However, that's not in the betting apps just yet because he hasn't been announced for official debut on the lineups. But look, if that's one you want, guys, I mean, if you want to like a free 100K, I mean, put your mortgage on Leo Lombard for 3+ goals. Yeah. Now, what do you have for us?
I think you take Lockie out for 25 on Richmond. I think that Richmond are one of the easiest teams to get disposals with as a running halfback.
Yeah.
So, Nick Martin had 37 on the way, 37 odd last week.
Yeah, 35 plus. I think it was 36 in the end, but he also kicked 2 goals as well. So
they've been dominating off halfback, whoever it is against Richmond. So just go
Lockie
on that. Even if you go 30 on him.
Yeah, I mean
but he's been averaging 25 plus a week, so take the easy one.
Take the easy one, boys. All right, guys. No, all right. So here's the rest of my Bros Bets for round 12.
Let's get into round 12. As always, we'll start with our same game multi for Thursday night footy. Brisbane beat Essendon. First leg is Archie Roberts for 20+ disposals. Second leg is Will Ashcroft for 25+ disposals. Third leg is Zach Bailey for 15+ disposals. And finally, Callum Archie to kick 2 goals, valued at $4.20. Now we'll look at our certainty bet this week. I'm taking Isaac Rankin to kick a goal against the Swans, valued at $1.30. Finally, the outside the boundary bet this week, I'm taking Tim Taranto to have 30+ disposals against his former side, valued at $3. And as always, guys, gamble responsibly.
So AFL Fantasy Chat, here we go. Now, you, I think it's the first time in a while, you got a lower score than me.
Yeah,
but by 24 points.
I was just shocked, really, to be honest, that I got 2,100.
Yeah, I mean, it was from what... Yeah, there were a couple of really high scores over the week. I will give him that.
I got a donut.
I mean, you got Cooper Simpson for 0, and...
No, I was watching that game. When the hit happened, I was like, oh, who's that? And I look at the app and I was like, that's Cooper Simpson.
Yeah, he's
Great.
Gone. Out for 8 to 10 weeks in instant trade out. Did you get him out this week?
No. I kept him in, but because I've got enough to cover him.
Well, for one.
I've got enough. I've got 18 players, so I've got enough.
I think you'll hold him for 8 to 10 while he's out.
No, I'll get rid of him next week when they're on their actual bye, but...
Yeah, not very good, was it? Fucking,
No.
I was going to get him too, but I obviously had to trade out some other injured players. A lot of carnage.
You were sort of lucky, but the good thing was that he actually went up in price because of it.
He went up because his break-even was just that low.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right, guys, let's get to the AFL Fantasy segment for the week. And I had an okay week. I would have had a good week if I had a couple of players out. But let's talk about the positive first of all. Max Holmes, 117. Finally got 100. It's been a while since he did that, so good job from him. Midfield absolutely shone. Did really well. Dawson, 139. Rosie, 105. Merritt, 149. Clayton Oliver, 130. Nick Dacos, 129. And Levi Ashcroft didn't get 100, but 89. I'll take that. Max Gawn, 140. Brilliant. Vice captaincy on Bailey Smith, 252. Luke Jackson brought into the team as one of my trades that I had to keep on changing around because of all the injuries. 106. You take that. Isaac Rankin I did bring in. He got 89. I'll take that. Only real negatives here were 2 Richmond players and I would say probably Rowan O'Marshall. Sam Lawler, Luke Traynor, 21 boys. You've got to do better for me, guys. Come on. I had Xavier Lindsay on the bench who got 79. He beat you basically on double points. Now, I should have had Xavier Lindsay in the team. I should have known that Lawler was going to have a tough performance because of only having a 5-day break. Obviously, did hurt his hamstring as well, which is really unfortunate. But I should have put Xavier Lindsay in the team. Unfortunately, I didn't. But nonetheless, you take it. Riley Sanders, I'll get to my trades in a minute, but he is finally out, all things considered. Hopefully there's not too many players out that are really unseen. Will Ashcroft, pretty disappointing with 78. Should have done a little bit better. And Jack Bowley, a little bit tough. He was tagged for the first 2.5 quarters, I would say. But yeah, nonetheless, a pretty okay week. I got 2,193. I thought my rank would have been a bit better than that because there were a lot of... I guess there were a lot of top scorers, though, wasn't there? So I guess that's all being said. I know Tristan Sherry had a bit of a poor performance. 86 isn't the worst, but when you think the guy's going to score 110 most weeks, it's not the greatest. But nonetheless, I'll take that. Now, my brother's team over the week scored lower than me. So I still haven't been able to catch much on him because he only got 2,169. So he got, I think, was it 24 lower than me, which isn't a lot, but... I could have caught back a little bit. Now, looking at his team, he had a little bit of a different defence to me. He had Nasai Wanganeen-Miller, a good score. Lockie Ash, good score. Rory Laird, good score. So you take all that. Zach Reid will probably have to get out because of the injury. But his midfield, he had Harry Sheasel in there. That's weird. I don't know about that. But anyway, he had Xavier Lindsay. So lucky him. He didn't have Lawler. He did have Tristan Cherry, but I mean, that's better than me anyway. His problem was his forward line. He had Cooper Simpson to get a fat 0. That's the problem there, I would say. Kept Jason on Francis. I don't know about that. I mean, he's probably back after the bye, I would say, but not great. But the 0 from Cooper Simpson really did hurt him, and he didn't have 100 to score in the forward line where I had a couple. He does have Bailey Smith in his midfield, but nonetheless, he scored slightly lower than me. His rank has dropped all the way outside the top 10,000 to 12,502. Looking at my rank, mine's 15,903. So not the worst, but I would prefer a little bit better than that. 15,903. I'm just continuing to plummet outside the top 10,000, aren't I? But nonetheless, let's get to our trades. So my trades, first of all, of course, now we get 3 trades with the first round of buys coming up. So I've got rid of Lawler, Sanders, and Buslinger for Clark, the debutant last week, Chad Warner in the forward line, and Gray. Now that Gray one may change depending on if there's a debutant or someone that I think can score more as a reserve. However, I've gone with Gray at this stage. Now, the big ones here are Lawler, obviously the injury. Didn't mean to give the finger to the camera. Lawler, of course, the injury. He has to go out. I've gone with Clark because I think that he'll have at least a couple more weeks in the team. 98 in debut. That was obviously with his 3 goals, but I think that he can score a bit more, so not too bad. Riley Sanders just had to go. I've been trying to get rid of him for weeks, but finally got rid of him. I've gone upgraded to Chad Warner. The reason why I've gone with Warner was because of the bye where the Swans have coming up. I don't have that many players out in that bye, so I've gone with the Swans player. I could have gone with a couple of others. Matt Kennedy was an option, but obviously he's got the bye this week. Next week I may go for an option as a Bulldogs player, but at this stage, Chad Warner's the guy I've gone with. And yeah, Buslinger, I could have gone with someone else, but I thought that I might as well I've got enough cash to just upgrade it a little bit and go with a player that's a little bit higher in price. I need to have some players continuing up, raising price so that I can change my team around and fix up some positions like the Lawlers, the Trainers, the Bices and stuff that I need to get rid of going at the end of the bye week. So we've got the next 5 weeks, I think, is bye rounds. We've got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 5 more rounds of buys. And then hopefully by then I should have been rid of most of my reserve players in my main 22. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. Now, my brother's trades for this week are Toby Green, Clark in, and Myers in for Sanders, Camperali, and Horn Francis. Toby Green's a really interesting choice. I've got to quiz him on that in the podcast tomorrow. But that's a weird one. I mean, I know he's had a decent year. I remember at the start of the year saying that he was going to be a real pod, and he has been somewhat. He's had a pretty decent year so far on points. I think he's gone for that because he wants to get some. That was all the money he had. But nonetheless, it's an interesting choice. I'll give him that. Clark, I think everyone's going to bring in Clark this week. And Myers. Now, he has told me that he potentially will change that to Jeremy Cameron if Patrick Dangerfield is out, I believe. But Brian Myers had his best game of the year over the weekend. So, not a bad choice. And Brian Myers, I think, can improve his form. He's had a pretty down year so far. So, I think he can improve, but nonetheless, not too bad. I'm very curious to see what he said about the Toby Green trade. That's a very interesting trade for mine. But the only thing I would probably change at the moment on trades for me is probably Gray. I'll probably keep the Chad Warner trade as it is. And I've got a bit of cash for next week as well because next week only St Kilda and Fremantle have the buys. So I've been trying to bring in a Fremantle player. That's why I brought in Luke Jackson. But I had to get rid of Jack McRae because of his injury. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I haven't got many people out this next week. So next week's going to be a real trades for, I think it's around 15 and 16 where most of my players are out. So looking to get rid of players in that buy round out then. But finally, let's take a look at an AFL tipping comp. So looking at the competition right now, the Cheetah Cubs is in first spot. He did jump up. What a round he had. I'm looking at it right now. 2,597. Congratulations, dude. That is a massive score. He has jumped nearly, 190 points into the lead in our competition. What a performance from the Cheetah Cubs. He's been sitting around, I think, third or fourth for a while now, but he's just jumped into top spot with a 190-point lead. That's pretty big. I mean, I would say so. Now, Bosch 69 was in top spot. He has dropped down to second, 2,300. I mean, that's pretty decent performance. But Lucas Martin, he was up the top for a lot. He was number one in round one. I mentioned it every single week. Had a good week, though, 2,411. Looking at the top scorers in our league right now, I didn't have a very good week. I'm being honest with you guys. That is very poor from me, 2,193. That is very poor. But these guys up the top six sitting there right now, looking pretty good. I think it's going to be pretty hard to knock off the Cheetah Cubs at this stage. It's pretty early on. The bye rounds can knock some teams around. But at this stage, the Cheetah Cubs sitting in a very good position at the moment. Looking where me and my brother are. My brother is in 40th place, so that's right in the middle. I think there's 88 in the competition, so he's sitting in 40th right now. He is, how much is he in front of me? 114 points in front of me. So it's a margin, I do think. It's going to be hard to catch that back. In the bye rounds, I may be able to. The Vern Dog sitting in 45th had a very good week. But yeah, not very good from me. I need to start catching up. That's why I'm hoping to try and get rid of as many of the rookies out of my team going into the second half of the season. Looking at it right now, I think I've got my forward line set, pretty much all good to go. My midfield needs to get rid of at least two. At least Xavier Lindsay at this stage. Levi Ashcroft, I could potentially move into the forward line, but I think you want to get rid of him at this stage. My defense needs some work. I need to get rid of Bice. I need to get rid of Trainer. Those are the big priorities going into the buys. And maybe even by round 15, I should have a pretty set team, hopefully. And maybe I'd still like to finish in the top 25, but it's going to be tough. I mean, I'm already 112 behind my brother, who's only 6 points in front of me. So it's going to be tough. 46th position right now. I'm in the back half of the league, and it's not looking very good. So I'm going to have to try and respond after that. But guys, that's pretty much all we have for the review for AFL Fantasy this week. Make sure to let me know down below what your trades are going to be and what your plans are going forward for the rest of the season. So finally, guys, we get to, of course, the flog of the week. Now, the last few weeks, we've had some real contenders to take out the award. I don't know if they'll take it out with this one this week, but it is very lazy of this person, of this group, to do what they're doing. Especially the fact that they are paid to call games at the venue, you would think. But over the week, Fox Footy were called out by Channel 7, a competitive broadcaster, for not going to the game. This happened on Sunday from BT. Now, say what you will about BT's commentary, but this was great little bit of little jab against the opposition, little opposition jab here. So he basically called out that this is a Sydney-Melbourne game, that the Fox Footy calling team were not at the game, that Channel 7 were watching, and then they were talking about how they've got to go to Darwin next week to do this, or they've got to go to Sydney and whatever. Now, Then the next day in the paper, apparently, Nick Riewoldt was talking about how Channel 7, basically said that a big, huge piece of paper that said, "We turn up." Little call out to the Fox Footy team. So that was broadcast over, I think it was Triple M that Nick Riewoldt's he's part of. But yeah, they were talking about basically the Fox Footy aren't going to the game. Now, it is also worth noting that comparing, so they would have called the game at Fox Footy at the headquarters, which is in Melbourne as well. Apparently, it is 11 minutes transport from the Fox Footy headquarters to the MCG. I don't know how much money they would save a bit of money making the call at the studio at Fox Footy, but surely you can send a couple of cunts to fucking sit there in the broadcasting booth and call the game.
Yeah.
Like, come on. You have cameras at the game, clearly, because you're obviously got Fox Footy broadcasters there. You've got someone on the boundary. You can get 3 people up into the box and watch the game from the MCG.
Who were the callers? I didn't actually watch the game.
So it was Matt Hill. I think it was Gary Lyon. It was definitely Matt Hill as the caller.
Yeah.
There would have been someone else. I can't remember who the other one was, but
So this guy, Matt Hill, who goes to Flemington during racing season, you're telling me that he wouldn't rather be at the game than be in a studio?
I don't know. It just seems a bit
I just
stupid.
think it's really funny, like, to take 11-minute drive or whatever.
Yeah.
Then, like, the atmosphere that you get at the game is so much better. It would have to be so much better than the atmosphere in a booth.
Yeah.
That you get there. Like,
Yeah, sitting in front of a screen, basically, watching the game.
It's a difference between, like, a game in Alice Springs or a game in Cairns or something.
Yeah, I mean,
From doing it. Well, when you're in Melbourne,
yeah.
the headquarters is in Melbourne, the game's in Melbourne. You telling me you can't walk half an hour, which you wouldn't be doing anyway.
Yeah, you'd be driving.
You get fucking reserved parking at the ground.
Yeah.
As a media person.
Yeah.
You're telling me they wouldn't want that luxury?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they surely should have gone to the game. That's ridiculous. Obviously, they should have gone. That is very lazy from Fox Footy. Very much a money-hungry move because it would cost them money to take the broadcasting team to the game.
Yeah, and especially with this new pay deal when they've got all the games.
Yeah, exactly. They should be making that trip, obviously. So, very bad call. I will say one thing, though. For people who are getting upset about not, paid for the first 8 rounds, there was no games like for people to watch on Saturdays. I do think that's a little bit of Channel 7's own doing because their broadcasting over the years has been so lackluster.
Yeah.
It's been very shit that, I mean, Fox Footy the AFL probably would have got even more backlash if Channel 7 was actually good. There are a lot of people already moving over to KO, like just because of how boring the broadcast was from Channel 7 over the years.
Yeah.
And now they've brought over all these shows at once that people are just getting bombarded by, that really no one's really even... I don't know how many people are watching those shows. I mean, there must be a lot. There must be a few, but a lot of people are just watching the clips online, I'm telling you right now. And I got to tell you, if Channel 7 are doing this all wrong, they've got to start posting on a YouTube channel these clips. Because no one's going to watch... people are not going to go on the show because of an Instagram clip. Like, I think Channel 9 do it right, that they post things like the Footy Classified clips on the Channel 9... I think it's Footy on 9 YouTube channel or something.
Yeah.
And granted, like, look, a lot of them just invoke rage inside of you when you listen to some of the comments. But, like, listen to some of the opinions from these footy personalities. But... Channel 7 have got to start posting it on YouTube if you want other people to start watching it. Because people aren't going to download the 7 Play or whatever the fuck the app is.
Yeah, 7 Plus.
I am not watching Agenda Setters and downloading that app. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. I can listen to Kane Corns make one stupid opinion every now and then and one below par opinion every now and then to make himself look smart. It's like, yeah, good on you, bro. You made a really good opinion about that player who everyone thinks is good. It's like, yeah, the other opinions you make are pretty fucking dog shit when you call the cheesy disposals from Sheasel and just calling him out of everywhere. And then you get butthurt when North Melbourne are like, no, we don't want you in the fucking rooms, cunt. Fuck off. What did you think about that, by the way? That was all way back last week with Luke Beveridge and Kane Corns. Did you think that was... I kind of side with Luke Beveridge on the side of, like, you called my job for so many years. Like, of course I don't want to listen to you. Go away.
But I kind of think that from what I've heard of what happened, I think Beveridge needs to pull his head in. Like, he literally just said, Bevo, like, hey, going? Like...
Yeah, I mean, look...
I think he's... Like, when people are saying, oh, he's in game mode, it's like, oh, he's like... Give me a break. He's in game mode. It's like... He's literally walking towards the box, I assume it was. That's what he was doing. With, like...
I just think it's a bit... I personally think that Kane Cornes has... I mean, you got to look at this to the side of... Kane Cornes for years was calling for his job. Now, if that was your job, you're sitting there like you're a chef. If you're still looking at the chef and every single time you're walking around, you get called out saying, oh, you're cooking shit, you suck, your job should be let go, you fucking deserve to be working somewhere else, you're trash at your job, you keep on making terrible decisions. Like, and he's just calling out for... Like, he's never really had a job in coaching before. He's never has. Like someone that's not a chef calling you out for not cooking properly. I think that's a bit like, oh, well, fucking, I don't want to listen to your opinion anymore. And when he's like trying to act all nice to you, like it's like a, I don't know, like I've never been a woman in like school or whatever, but a two-faced bitch on the other side of it. Like you think about that, and then he's like, oh, hi, how are you? It's like, no, I don't want to fucking talk to you. Fuck off.
Just pretend that you don't give a fuck. Like,
well, he should have just kept walking.
I think the best way, just keep walking and like let it show what he's doing. Like the winning the 20. Yeah, this season's proven that he can fucking coach.
Yeah,
this season's proved that he knows what he's doing. It's kind of like as he goes past, but like you just what he should have. If it was me, I would have been like, "You're gonna talk to me now? Where's my? You know." He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. He should have turned around and said, yeah, I'm actually doing pretty well as the coach today, aren't I? And he just kept on walking.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at coaching, aren't I, mate?
But the problem is, because they lost, he's allowed... Then Kane Cornes has more ammo to keep on going. Yeah. That's the problem. He should have just kept on walking. Well, completely disengaged. Shouldn't have engaged.
But the thing is now, with him being at 7, this is all coming to light of him being on broadcast every week. Like, he was on SEN and not calling games. Now that he's at the ground, on the grounds, when he's pre-game and all that sort of shit, this is all coming to light with all North Melbourne, the crap, and then the Western Bulldogs stuff. All of that's coming to the fore.
Yeah, he's now been, like, he was never in the rooms, it's like SEN and stuff.
Yeah, now he's being acknowledged for...
Yeah, he was already banned from the Bulldogs for way early on. Yeah. So now it's been told that he's banned from North Melbourne rooms as well.
Like, do you think... To be honest, do you think if the stuff that didn't happen with North Melbourne happened at the start, a couple of weeks ago, do you think this happens at the Western Bulldogs game, the Geelong game? Because I don't think it does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
If that stuff happens, because he wouldn't be on the ground, and he wouldn't have encountered Kane Cornes.
Yeah,
so
probably.
This probably doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think also the camera that caught it, I think was just some person at the ground as well.
Yeah.
So
I just thought it was funny that Nick Rewalt started to get involved. The most
biggest sook on the planet.
Like I think he's the best person you want coming to be your bodyguard. It's like, mate, just sit down, mate.
If I was Nick Rewalt, I'd be sitting down because he could have just turned around and said, "Oh, do you want to just sue DDF a little bit more? Just to try." You can't talk about you there, Nick. You fucking crybaby. Anyway, I think that's where we'll end it, guys. So, Flog of the Week nominee goes to Fox Footy for not going to games. Very disappointing. Very lazy of them to do so, and they should be at fucking games. And I bet you they will be for the rest of the year, especially at the MCG.
Well, they will be at Melbourne. They will be definitely in the Victorian games.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. But guys, if you did enjoy this episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 115, then of course make sure to leave a like on the YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We've been posting clips the last few weeks and they've been going pretty well, so we're going to continue to do that. That's why I kind of changed the name and the what do you call it? The profile picture on YouTube. So we could post things like the review and that, and people are a little bit more attracted to the channel rather than just the podcast. But if you do enjoy the clips and you want to keep on seeing them, then you can send them to your mates if they do enjoy if they would enjoy a podcast like this. So that's how we grow the channel. I think that's really going to start to work as well. So if you did enjoy it, of course, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are over on Spotify, make sure to leave us 5 stars and make sure to follow us so you're notified on the podcast every single week. But again, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you all next week.
See you later.